the specific the Indian Cloud Security Summit 2022. It's really it's a great opportunity for me, and so I must thank to the organizer and sponsor for this event. So this is, I think, like also the last event, so that multiple times you have seen this specific of slide. So that hope I'm wishing you to use guys to get this the price end of the session. So before we start with this one, so we need to, like, the scope for the change is very important, right? So that so we need to support and we need to encourage um, what is that, like the students to get that things, and they want to grow in that right direction, and they need the help. So we have supporting for this specific activity, and so if you guys are interested, you can donate your best things in this specific link given below. So I'm Shantabhav Pandian. I'm I'm the AI data analytics delivery lead, and almost 20 years of experience in IT industry. Today's session, the given, I'll choose one topic which is called it's going to be Azure SQL Database Security Capabilities. Okay, so the Azure SQL Database Security Capabilities perspective. So if you guys like in the whole day session, so we have come across some multiple the security perspective point of view, have maybe come across so many things. So I chosen my topic because I'm on day-to-day activity. I'm into that data. I'm playing with the data, basically, right? So what is exactly, we have a lot of security aspects. We have so many things in current world scenario, because actually we want to protect the system from hackers. So that's very important. So specifically the data nowadays, I would say, is a fuel for a business decision, and so that we are building the robust, the big data culture, and we are driving the insight of the data, and then we are building the lot of what is that, analytics dashboards, and we are preparing so many things out of it, and and it is leading through that machine learning, artificial intelligence space. So when you are going driving the through data, the data needs to be secured until my giving a decision to the end user. Not only for that, continuously I need to give my the data security for my data. Then only my application, my product will be stable in the uh, production, and customer will happy, and the data will be secure. So in data security aspects, actually we know, right? So before getting into the uh, in normal way, we have come across even before cloud is implemented into the place. So we used to do data encryption, decryption, hashing, tokenizing, so many things. But the same thing, if you're moving into the cloud, so we have to give all these kind of the security aspects to our data platform. That is a mandatory one, right? So it's really important, and we have to have that as complete security um, alerts. So because actually this is not just like we are storing the data in our database and treating the data, and we are playing around the data in the simple application. Not like that. So it's more of the data, chunk of data is flowing to my data platform. So there I need to do a lot of demonstration, and there is a chances for heating the data and taking the data, or spoiling my the entire data uh, uh, lake, basically. So there is a lot of opportunities for that one. So I need to restrict that one. So the Microsoft already, they're giving a lot of security aspects perspective in law. There are many components in Azure environment, you know that. The specific to the data platform, specific to the Azure space. So we have so many things. Okay, so I'll get into that in very shortly. So what is the significance of data security? Data security is a huge topic, you know that, in the current world, as I mentioned earlier, because the lot of hackers and government, even the governments are trying to break that, the opposite, like try to get at the secrets. the database from the other one, like they want to understand secrets to like take over them. There are so many things are going on, and specifically for the financial and highly sensitive information about the persons. Probably you might know or come across like HIPAA, PCI, and GDPR. There are so many things are in that. So all the individual governments that try to secure the data in various aspects. This since actually the data now it's available on the cloud, right? In this the cloud age, the Azure environment provides a multi-layer view of security around your data. I mean the customer data specifically, because so when I'm moving from my data into my own data center into the cloud, so there are a lot of challenges there. So I need to like make it reliable, and even the Microsoft also providing like highly secured things like that. There are a lot of layers, different layers they're providing to give the security for data basically, right? So these are very important thing, because when we are constructing any data architecturing part, it's not simply like what are the data schema we need, where the sources need, not like not only that, only the key aspects. So we need to understand all the things, like we have a data ingestion layer, we have a data serving layer, transformation layer, and we have a data governance, quality, privacy. There are so many layers in it in data platform, but all the nutshell is comes under the data security. If you're protecting the all these the pillars within the bound of the data security things, so then only you will make the success on this journey. That's a very important. Okay, right. So when you talk about when building that cloud data architecture point of view, so we used to build so many components. Everybody know that, right? So we have ingestion, as I mentioned, there are so many 6 to 7 layers over there. But the data security is not data privacy. Data privacy is totally different. Okay, to make sure that there's a kind of like inertial, I would say. The data security measures an organization's taking in order to prevent any third party access from the authorization access. But data privacy is nothing but within the group. If I want to make my data privacy within the group, my organization, I want to bring my data governance over there. Who can access, what can access, how can access, and who is a privileged access inside of my uh, my organization level. So there is a difference between data privacy and data security. That's very important. Got it? Right. So, so far, so we have the data security best practices in place already. We are using a multi uh, factor authentication. Yes, so we are using that. Everybody know very well. So when you are logging your Gmail from like the new gadgets or new laptop somewhere, so it started asking so many questions, and it's like getting access, then swiping that, you giving the access. Hey, I'm only logging from somewhere else, so you have to like authentication from your mobile, so you have to say yes or no, something like that, and then they will send an email to you. So there are a lot of protections as given by to secure your email, because actually email is a lot of information, so you can do so many things. So already we have implemented like a multi-factor authentication, and already we are giving a brainstorming session for our training our employees, um, like kind of user acceptance policy, how they want to protect the data in their work environment. There are so many trainings in house most of the time. So that is a mandatory training, learning for them. So they have to undergo that one, and every year basis in our organization almost, so that the employee can understand what is the security of the data, right? Sometimes they will write the things on the username password shouldn't be right in somewhere, something like that. It's a general thing. And the same way, having the identity of sensitivity of the data and classify, that's very important. When you're dealing with anything, like for example, not only the username password, that's okay, that's fine. That's that the very high level logging to the system. But when you're handling the sensitive data, like like your social security number, or your national security number, or else like your PCI information or credit card information. So we have to make sure that all these specific detail has to be classified, and what the data needs to be like as a sensitive data need to address that. That's very important thing. And data usage and governance policies. As I mentioned, like data usage and governance policy, we need to bring that the culture inside the organization, how to organizing our the different users, different roles in our organization, who has a rights to access the data and who can access. For example, suppose the person X is in the organization, is moved from the one level to another level. So we need to understand, identify that has been like transmitted to the governance team. So the data governance teams, they have to pick up that, and they have to identify a guy is moved from one layer to the other layer, so that he needs the higher responsibilities. I mean, higher uh, roles and roles to look at the data, and he doesn't need required any low level information, something like that. So we need to change that accordingly. So for that, we used to manage um, setting up the governance what is that governance meetings, and we have a different lead squads, and data stewards has to be in the place to understand that perspective we need to have. And monitoring access of sensitive data, as I mentioned, like all the other things. And document your cybersecurity policies is very important. So we need to prepare that document of cybersecurity policies. I need to have the digital sign. And with respect to life science and banking and financial services, and very sensitive data have been like handled in anywhere. So what they will do is they used to prepare the document of security policies. They get the signs from the employers and contractors who are working on the specific project, and organization employees as well. And same time, actually, we have to implement the risk-based approach of security. If that anything happened to that security violence, we need to handle that. But in this session, I'm not able to cover those things because of wider area. So I'll try to cover like the Azure capabilities with respect to the security things, right? So these are the basic and very high level data security best practices should be in place, so that at least minimum viable level you can secure your data. That's very important. So this is a simple thing. As you know, this one actually we have in Azure SQL, we have a managed instance and SQL database instance, and we have a SQL server on Azure virtual machine. So that is a different one. That is infrastructure as a service. Now we are going to discuss about a platform as service. Under that, we have a SQL Server Managed Instance and a SQL database. And this specific the things what I'm going to explain, go through over that in the next 30 minutes. That's going to be talk about um, even for analytics as well. Okay, that's like I mean Azure Analytical Services. So this is a simple statement. What is Azure Database? You know, right? This is a PaaS services, and it handles most of your database management functions, upgrading, patching, backing up, and monitoring without user involvement, right? So here we are just handling the data, but on top of that, we need to put a lot of layers to secure your database system. So now we are on this part. This is actually the inside the core is my customer data. It could be any customer. It could be a pharma. It could be a, like a retailer. It could be any industry, right? But we need to secure the data. As I mentioned, actually, you know, guys, like so when you log into the SQL Server in on premises, right? Microsoft SQL Server instance in the local. So we used to give like username, password, and log into that those so that we can play around with that. That's fine, as long as if it is in your in-house. But when I'm moving this specific piece into the cloud, there should be a multi-level layer of security system need to implement to secure my data. So the Azure, I mean like Microsoft, they are providing four different layers of security things, like the security, network security, and access management, and threat protection, and information protection, right? So if we provide all these things, all these layers, very sensible way, when I'm constructing my architecture, right? When I'm constructing my data platform, I need to consider all those things, because actually getting the data from external source and doing all the demonstration by using my Azure Data Factory or Synapse, whatever it is. But end of the day, I should store my data in physical form. I mean, in logically, and I want to store it in my uh, database, right? Sometime actually we can create, and for reference perspective, we can store in database. Sometime we'll create, that is a scenario based, like we can create different file format, we can handle that, that's fine. But when I look at that Azure database perspective, so we have to implement secure network security level and access management and threat protection and information protection to secure the overall database. Let's see one by one how it is. So network security, as you know that if I want to hit something like some HTTP, blah, 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 some website, so it will ask me username password. So if I don't username password, I can jump into the website, I can play around with like what are the pages there, that's fine. But if I don't have a proper username password, or else like I forgot my password, so the system will secure like with the help of the, what is that, firewalls on top of that. Actually we want to enable the firewalls to access a specific IP address. That's very important, right? So with respect to this the security capabilities, the specific network security is layer helps to protect the customer data as a very first outermost layer, and with the help of the firewall, which blocks the access of server until will provide explicit uh, data platform accessing. So, for example, you guys come across some situations. Say, I want to access some application for my could be application maintenance, or it could be application uh, uh, some specific application uh, like a VPN or whatever it is. So we used to give our they used to give that username password. We connect with that, but on top of that, they have to get our IP address, so that that needs to be open up that the gateway, right? So once you open the gateway, we able to connect that system, then we can work on that. So we need to disconnect from our local things, or like we have a standard one, we have to define that this is a firewall range. But most of the time, these activities taken care by our infrastructure team. Got it? So with respect to the Azure SQL and analytical as well, you can say. So we have two major network security things. One is server level IP, and another one is database level IP, right? So when you talk about database level IP firewall rules and server level IP address firewall rules, these are a little bit different. So if you look at the specific flow diagram, which is recommended by Microsoft, so basically the external, the Azure environment, like you'll try to access through that internet. So that will hit like a database level or not. And then if you have access that specific database level firewall rules has been set up for your specific your IP, and then that will directly give access to your database with a defined one. Okay, so database one. But in the case, if it is not satisfied, then we have to take up the route of saying that it will check whether you have a server level firewalls or rules or not. I mean, for you, the individual person or set of people has been assigned to the specific database, or else a set of the database as a server. So in that condition, so my things will be validated whether I'm going to be sit with the database level or server level, and it will take me to the respective location and land at that. So which enables the entire server, that way multiple databases, actual SQL Server database will be have. So most of the thing, the administrator and the key people, like they'll have access for the server level for to access the multiple database, right? And all this information, hope you know guys are, if you're familiar with Microsoft SQL Server, so that is a database which is called master database. We are talking about this master database in aging. So there all the information will be stored, rules will be stored, what you need to be act, what it be like do with then. So everything's will available. And this specific rule enables a client to access your entire server, right? So this can be configured in Azure portal easily, right? Because actually Azure is portal is giving a lot of features for us, like to build to do the configuration in simple way without without any hesitate, like simple way of first steps. If you understand the basic concepts, I'm telling you, that's very important. Because actually nowadays, even I've seen, if you try to execute some stored procedure on the row, but most of the people they never use right starter, not haven't written any stored procedures so far, because there are almost 5 years or less than 8 years experience guys, they never end up with writing the stored procedures. But as we are doing ages, actually we started writing a scripting, and it comes under like what is that, we have come across rdbms, dbms, rdbms, irdbms, so many things we have come across. So the Azure portal is providing a simple way to configure all these things, and PowerShell, and T SQL statement. Okay. And then when you coming to the database level, as I mentioned, that is to focus to the specific database. So most of the time, if in my organization I'm the database administrator for my the entire org enterprises level, I should have that server level server access. For example, I'm managing a 2 projects or 3 projects, so I don't want that level, right? So I can have like at least a project level or a product level, so that I needs to be configured in such a way that like database for IP for firewall request for uh, database level. And you can create a rules for each database, and then they can store the individual database, so that, and you can specify the again the same way of like in my team I have a 10-member team. So for all other people like pointing to one database, so they have to get the IP level access and they can use that, right? So only those the client does have IP address that the database system can access the database. That is a bottom line statement, everybody knows that. So when you come across here, as I mentioned earlier, like the server level IP rules and for administrator, it's a controllable, right? So they have overall control at enterprises level, and database level IP rules whenever possible. If I'm in the project, then I'm not in the project. So that needs to be taken care flexibly, remove or add whatever it is, right? So these are the very important thing when you hitting the specific Azure data security campus level, first the outer level, that's one, right? So once it has been done, again, there are a lot of things need to implement. This specific the screen is talking about a simple configuration. So if you're familiar with Azure environment portal, it's a very simple. Just you click that your database, and you go to that, and you can find your server details. When you click that, you will give the like all your server detail information. Then again, you need to provide all your IP address range. It has a, like a list of IP, like it starts with 92.168.1.1, and then next one is a 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. So that way we can do that, or else actually we can execute this specific sp underscore set underscore firewall rule for the specific person, and start the, the set of people and the address, the IP address from starting from to and end. And same way for database level, we can execute the same set of uh, things and with the respective set of people. So setting up the security at network level is a very, very important and high level, highly secure one. The rest of things is as follows now. Let's move on. So second one is the layer which talks about access management. The access management, you got the privilege to get into the gate. You are actually, the gate is open for you now inside your campus. Now you're looking what is your authentication, what is your authorization, right? So hope you know that like there is a difference. Like authentication actually is nothing but a process of providing a user who they have a claim to be. So I need this access, I need access for the developments into one A, B, C, D, something like that, and cafeteria and infrastructure team area, whatever it is, right? And authorizations refer to the controlling the access on the resource and command within the database. I mean, like, so what are the access I can do inside? So if I want to go into the canteen, I can go roam around and get all the items, whatever I want. But if I'm going to the like data center, then I have to be just log in. I cannot, like, my access supposed to be completely restricted. I couldn't go and switch on the server, switch off the server. No, I have to take my respective person for the data center. Then I need to walk inside the data center room. That's very highly secure. I don't know how many of you get experience on that. So getting inside the data center, it's a really huge, really highly secured things. So people will get that, will take you, and we have to be like sit and watch what they're doing. Sometimes they're not restricted, they're not allowed. So they'll get all the details from us, then go inside, they'll fix that one, then they'll come back. They have a different layer inside that. So when you talk about authentication, there are three different authentication. Many years actually we are familiar with that. Those are new into this SQL field. There are the major thing. That's a SQL authentication and Azure AD authentication specific to the Azure, and then Windows authentication. So if you are accessing your Azure database from the uh, local, I mean on premises, so that authentication will be connected and that will be like, taken to your cloud and you can access the data, right? So and Azure AD is for connected with all the all the components which is in Azure, Azure resource management point of view, right? And then Azure SQL authentication to access specific thing. I may have my ADD, but I may not have the access to the SQL server, so that I need to get access from that. So they'll assign for me so that I can access that specific SQL authentication. Such a complete concrete layer over there. And authorization. Authorization, as I mentioned, like accessing permission, that's very important. So even if the access given to me for a specific database, there might be a only select option, only update option, or else a delete option. If I have a delete option, I can do all the options. All DML you can do perform, right? Data manipulation language, what you know. And you can do that data control language, DCL, DML, and DDL, whatever the things you can do based on your database rule, right? So that's very important thing. So sometimes if you're performing something like if you don't have that access, so we cannot prove ourselves. I had one experience in my earlier experience. So there was a specific, the data has to be moved into that server. We have built the mobile app. Through that, the data has to be taken from the user and needs to be transformed to the database. So my application is working fine. That is actually the SQL based, mobile based SQL server. So the mobile based SQL server will take the data and store it in itself. And we have built the services, WF services in between. The data has been taken my web mobile application and it's stored inside my the minimal storage capacity of my mobile based SQL server, and it has been like transferred through and connected through my web services and it taken to my actual server. I couldn't save that. But what are the data I've been saving in my directly to the server? I mean, like in system, like that reflecting in my mobile. So that actually it was a testing piece for not only for my application, a testing piece for myself. Then actually I reached out my uh, administrator saying that, hey, can I have that specific rule so that I want to demonstrate something with the bigger audience, because actually the application has been developed and is waiting for moving to the production. So what I said, they said, no, we can't give any privileged one. Then I said, just give that access for a 5 minutes or less than 5 minutes. I'll try to demonstrate so that you can see my data in the cloud. Just go and see that. If it is working fine, there is some access issues, right? Authentication is there, authorization is not there. So I struggled and fight for my rights and my success rate for me and my team members. Those are built on the product that we are all the times we are worked on that. So the meeting has been set up. Then everybody is on the eye waiting for that, because that's a very crucial thing. The administrator giving the my admin rights to me, and then I started kicking my application as a like the handle device. So just I like just started feeding my data. So once I submitted, then I synchronized with my system. Then ultimately, in a fraction of second, less than few seconds, the data has been updated, and I asked them to verify the data is available in other end, right? So such a concrete access management is very important, not only for firewall. After this specific access management, then only we can feed the data and get out of the data. Then after that, the administrator convinced my representation and all the team, all the architecture teams, and they were discussed. They're ready to give at least minimum level, not administrator level, like below that level, they given access for that, and they have a restriction, put the restriction, and they created a custom rules. That's very important. They prepared the custom rules over there, and they're given access to me. Then I started. Then the application is going fine. So the access management is a very important, because actually once the gate is open, you are at the campus. The college gate. Once you enter the college, you can be anywhere right inside the campus. You can be sitting on the like the park, or you can be in the library, or you can be in like conference room, wherever it is. But if you have right access, then only you can get inside. But you can inside the campus. So such a very very important access management with respect to the Azure capability. So that will give the complete picture about to touch the heart of the data. And another one coming to this specific the security uh, capabilities in Azure, that threat protection. Nowadays, this is actually horrible thing, right? So suddenly we are getting that a specific server has been hacked. This is actually data has been lost. So to get the data back, we have to pay so many things and so much of dollars and get back that. So we have to have the threat detection capability in our system. Then it will be really help us to monitor what's happening, like a CCTV camera. That's very important. So Azure, they are providing this capability with the help of threat protection layer here. So the SQL database and managed instance auditing and track database activities we available, and the security standards. We have to set up the security standards. We can get it that, because actually whatever the logs, generally when we are building in olden days, uh, if I'm editing some record, who is log into the system, who is editing that, my information, my all the detail will be like, we used to add one column, and we'll take that the information and store it in that table, and we'll do all the things on top of the all the requirement, right? When is deleted, updated, something like that. But now the threat protection system, which is existing available in our Azure, so that will automatically tracking all the informations. Once thing, you need to enable that. If you enable that, that will completely capture that. If the feature, these features allows to monitoring the ongoing database activity, adding the table, deleting the table, adding the data, and deleting all MDL access, so DML access. So what DML things, we can get that. So with the help of that, we can find out like, is there any security violations happen or not, or is there any potential threats is running over there. We can identify that with the help of threat protection. This is a simple window. That's what I'm telling actually. So in ages we are struggling to get that, but Microsoft most of the time they will give things that make easy our life, make easy. How we drag the text box and command button and started writing in command button, text one dot text two is equal text three is equal to text one dot text two. Then I get the output in my text three 20 years back. The same thing here, if you want to do the configuration, simply open up a portal and open up that, and chuck, that's it. It's a storage. What kind of SQL auditing you need? You want a storage log, analytical log, event hub. If you want to store into storage, you want to mention the what storage. And for log analytics, you have to say as a files. And the event hub means that will take the route to the event hub. Then the event hub waiting for our all the logs, and you can build the event like a stream analytic kind of information, so that event hub will take all the information and you can start doing your stream analytics, right? So it's a massive thing. With a fraction of second we can configure, and we can do with the help of like the auditing point, like what is that, our threat protection. And even one step further, we're providing like Microsoft Defender for cloud control. Cloud, this is specifically for CSPM, that is nothing but cloud security process management perspective. And then workload protection, cloud workload protection, how much load has been like we are doing that, and what are the cloud security process management point of view. We have a very nice dashboard we can have. So once simply we have to configure that, then we can find out like how secure data and what is the regulatory compliance we have. So we have to configure that information simply, and you can monitor that. That's very important, right? So this is specifically where strengthen the overall security process for your environment. So no need to fine tuning each and every logs. No, Earlier, actually, when something happened, what we used to do, we'll go to the Windows log and we'll try to find out all the Windows event and filter your Windows event. We get that information and we'll find out what happened. Then there should be like administration issues, something not blah blah blah. So many things are there. But nowadays we have that Azure Environment Portal. They have a new capability like a Microsoft Defender on for the cloud. So that will give a clear picture representation. What is the firewall manager? So many things, configurations we have. But we need to implement that in our project. That's a very important. But because actually it's an additional headache. I won't say it's an additional headache. Additional responsibilities. Then only we can protect our not only building the block. We have to add on this one, so that will be really help us a lot. And mostly whatever if you're doing like SQL injection and potential data infiltration and brute force attacks. The brute force attacks is a really very funny thing. So they used to create a something kind of scripting. In a fraction of a second, it tried to attempt like a thousands of the guest password and try to hit and get it inside your system. So those kind of suspicious activities like we can monitor and observe, and you can do that. So that the specific what is that threat protection system helping us to protect the environment. The ELL one access perspective. The before that it was like it's like completely core for that one, the entire whole things, and then now we are come across what threat protection. Okay, cool. And coming to my the favorite area, that is information protection. That's a very important because all is done. I have a network access properly, like I've given my ID, my set of people, it's fine. And proper governance is there, that's good. That's a different part. As a development team, my worry, like my team need to have access for the system, right access, right roles, and my team is doing work so that it needs to be configured properly. And once it's moved into that, all the things, the threatening things are configured or not, because until in development we don't bother. Sometimes even there would be like the potential threatening to that environment as well. But once in the production, that specific the security level need to be highly alert, right? We have to focus on that, right? So that's very important. So with respect to the information protection, this is my core part. I need to take care of, this is my baby, because actually when I'm handling my doing my data platform building, doing all my ETL process and building the analytics, blah, this and that and etc. I need to take care of very important thing, two aspects. Encryption of data, because I don't want to see my customer details. I want to close my eyes and do my process. That's very important. Why? How can I do my close my eyes, do the process? So by using this encryption in transit and encryption in at rest, that giving me a extraordinary the strength to do without any hesitations. Because actually, and even I come across one situation, we need to get the data from external source, and we want to do something, some analytics. By the time our compliance team said, hey, there is something like the compliance data, sensitive data is there, how we are going to do that? Then we said, okay, we can mask that or we can encrypt that. Yeah, that's fine, you can encrypt that. What the other guy will doing, like the guy is giving the data to you as a data source, so how this will be happen? So who can take care of that? So in such a way, so I want to understand how things are going, right? So that's a very important thing. So by the time we are instructed the source team saying that, hey guys, just you mask your data or encrypt or encrypt your data so that we'll get the same data. So this for me, for my analytical side, I don't bother about that, because actually application side only want to decrypt that. Okay, so something like sometimes we'll want to escape. That's the reason actually application side you want to decrypt that. But when you're doing my analytics space, so what I used to say, if the data is not required for me, please better exclude from my column. I don't want that. So in that space as well, we have an encryption in transit and encryption at rest. There are the two flavors which is available, right? In data analytics, we have to ensure that all the data is encrypted in transit between the client and server. That is called, is going to be a transport secure layer security, right? So the data has been transmitted from my source into my landing area, then that needs to be encrypted. I have to look at that. Hey, it's encrypted. Yes, it's fine. Encrypted. I'm happy. And then secure customer data by encrypting at rest. Sometimes the data has been lying in my database, right? Even though that's like needs to be protected. So this layer security helps to protect the data rest from the unauthorized access, because the data is in my data lake or data SQL server. So somebody shouldn't straight away data center theft and all, to avoid that one. But all these encryption decryptions taken care by my AE. Yes, that is advanced encryption standard algorithm they're implemented. That is a different area. I don't want to go into detail that. Okay. Yeah. So this advanced encryption algorithm is implemented in most of the software and hardware throughout the world, encrypting the sensitive data, and we'll get that information. And it's very essential, and guidelines given by the government, secure computer and cyber security and electronic data protection. There are so many things they're implementing with the help of this AI, and there are other things are available. The most familiar things actually we are using, because to masking the data and doing that one, that taken care by specifically the security, what is that, the cyber security level. They have to use a lot of programs over there, then they'll change that information as understandable way when you're decrypting. So all newly created, and one more thing actually here, the all newly created database in Azure actually encrypted by default, so that has a capability. I have another slide that has a capability to find out these are the system will understand that intelligence, saying that, hey, this column is a sensitive, make it encrypt. This column is a sensitive, make it encrypt. So that level of intelligence has been provided by the Azure. Okay, right. And right, the key vault, basically that the Azure, like you should have appropriate uh, key value all management, so that you have to put that information, take the access. So sometimes they'll use or sometimes may not use that. So it's like additional responsibilities, additional security for the system. And here, as I mentioned, like the credit card numbers, national identification number, SSN number, and any other things, Aadhaar card number, whatever it is. So that needs to be always encrypted in your space, right? So always encrypted, protect the data, store specific database column for from the access. That's it. It's fixed. You cannot touch anything, right? So like just like what is that, in bank and all, actually we have a lockers. You can go to the teller, you can go to the like withdrawal machine, wherever it is, and even you go to the bank manager room or everywhere, but the protected lock room, right? You cannot. So such a way is like encrypted everything and always will be there. So whenever we have a right person to right access, they can do that. The data always encrypted, data is decrypted, only processing by the client application with the access to the encryption key. If you have the key, then only I can go to the inside the locker, bank locker, I can open and see my all my uh, golds, right? All the things. So I can see that. And same way, we have some scenario dynamic data masking, that also in scenario, because actually when I want to mask, probably like if you're connecting with your customer care, they will ask you like last four digits of your credit card number, or else like some system will ask you four digits of your credit card number, or else like your order number, last four order number, you have to tell them, right? So that is verbally, actually we are masking that the information dynamically. And this one is actually, this limits the sensitive data exposure by making not privileged users. That's fine, because if I my credit card number, if they're asking, hey, can you please tell me the last four digits, means you should say only four. You shouldn't say all the 16 number or 20 24 number or 32 number. That's it, gone. Your bank account will be taken care by the person who is asked the details with you. So the same way, when you're doing the dynamic masking, I have to take care of this, and this specifically give us a potential sensitive data in SQL Server and as well as the managed server. So for a actionable and recommended for a specific fields. So this is generally coming to the requirement. When we are coming to the requirement, we have to say, hey, make this items as fields as a mask, and we have some techniques. We apply that, we can get that. Okay, and they will like change that, like you are entering the password as a star star star, right? So there is a column called the field. What is that? The property called you want to change as a password so that it will be changed internally, something like that. So it works for the sensitive data and result for a query for this designed data fields. So these are the very important thing. And one more major capability here, security management perspective. So Azure, they are providing the discovery, data, and classification capability, and it's in preview at this present. And here also we can see that to build the SQL database and manage instance to provide sensitive data. So once you connected with your information and you configured your database, the specific uh, data discovery and classification component will help you that these are the business and financial data, and these are the healthcare, the patient's information, and this could be like sensitive data for from um, what is that? The patients are like investors, and sometimes it could be like some key equipments in the manufacturing industries. There are so many things, and even the personal data like a date of birth, Aadhaar card, and SSN number, and social security number, and national security number. So this all comes under GDPR perspective. So most of the customer, they are now they want to implement GDPR and they want to build the governance for internal point of view as well as GDPR for the holistic point of view. And this specific infrastructure helping to meet the data privacy standards and regulatory compliance requirements, so that once in the picture this specific capability, so we are free from that security attacks, right? So here I'm stopping my note. So any questions? So we have 10 more minutes, so I'm giving back to you guys. So if you have any questions, we can discuss now. Guys, are you there? I'm stop sharing. Yeah.